Welcome to the Peer Support Podcast. Today's podcast is about taking first steps towards managing our mental health and is presented to you by Rachel, that's me, hello, Andrea.
Hi everybody.
Tim.
Hello.
You are peer support workers who work within the Wellbeing Service. Today's podcast will cover what are peer support workers, taking first steps towards managing our mental health, and sharing peer support workers' stories of taking those first steps. We hope that you come away from today's podcast with an understanding of those steps that we take to manage our mental health. So just to introduce peer support work to you, just in case you've not heard of peer support workers before. So peer support workers all have their own experience of living with mental health challenges, and we share our experience of this with others, along with our recovery stories to offer hope. We use our experience of recovery to help people to make sense of what they are going through and to explore what may support them in their own recovery. So, like I said, today's podcast is all about taking those first steps towards managing our mental health. And we had a bit of a think to come up with some words that might describe taking first steps towards managing that. And, you know, everyone's experience is different, isn't it? So some of the words we came up with are scary, tiring, at times overwhelming, a sense of shame, brave, relieved, and empowering. So, like I said, we've got Andrea and Tim with us today. So I'm going to hand over Andrea, and Tim. Do any of those words resonate with your experience of taking those first steps towards managing your mental health?
Yeah, absolutely, Rachel. So definitely a sense of shame around, admitting that something's wrong and taking those first steps. But also I've felt quite relieved when I've gone to get some support.
And I think it's also knowing that there is support, because, I knew that I didn't feel right, but I didn't actually know where to go for it. So, for me, it was my GP pointing me in the direction of the Wellbeing Service. And yeah, like you say, that sense of relief in terms of, oh, okay, there are people who can help. I'm not just being very strange. This is all right, and I'll make contact. And Tim, anything of those words that resonate with you, or any words of your own?
Yeah, no, for sure. At times, overwhelming really resonates with me, because it can feel like such a massive wall to climb when you've kind of got to that point where you think something needs to change here, and you're just looking up at the scale of it and wondering how you're going to get over it. Eventually, of course, you can. But yeah, it really resonate with me to think of it as an overwhelming experience.
And again, that kind of fits in, like what Andrea said, when we have that sense of shame because it's our mental health that we're dealing with, and, that can kind of compound that sense of being overwhelmed when you're already overwhelmed. And then I like what you said, looking up and thinking, oh gosh, what's going to happen? But also, I think even with all of those words, and even if you guys listening today are kind of thinking, well, it's a different experience for me, would you say though, despite feeling those different things there, that ultimately taking those first steps is worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine my life being any other way than it is right now. I don't really like to think about what would happen if I hadn't taken those steps. But yeah, it can be hard work at times. It can be tiring, but it's worth it. My life is richer for having taken those steps.
Yeah, sorry, Andrea. Yeah, do you want to?
It's okay. I was also going to say that I'm really, really pleased that I did, because before I took those steps, I thought of it as a sign of being weak, needing to get support. But actually now looking back, I know that I've been incredibly strong, opening up, speaking to people, accepting there was something that needs sorting out, really. And, I wasn't okay.
Yeah, and like you say, it's actually a point of strength where you kind of say to yourself, do you know what? I don't feel quite right. I don't really know what's going on. Perhaps, it's like Tim said, it's all very overwhelming. But like you said, having that sense of, okay, I'm going to ask for help. And actually, this is a position of strength that I'm putting myself in because I'm taking that first step. And would you both agree, it's definitely my experience that actually the first steps that we take, they might seem small on the outside to people looking in, but they're absolutely massive. Like you say, when you accept that, you know, you need to have help. You make the appointment to have the help. You know, they seem like quite, oh, that's a simple thing to do, but actually for me they were massive steps. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I agonised for ages. I've had a bit of a setback recently, and I put off contacting the doctor or actually talking to anybody about it. You know, I thought that I'd be able to handle things on my own, but it turned out that I couldn't. And so, yeah, massive first step for me making that appointment.
And Tim, is that your sort of experience too? That, you know, those small steps are actually quite big.
Yeah, that first phone call I made to my GP, it felt like I was on the phone for hours. It was probably 5 minutes, but the phone was heavy, like just trying to get the words articulate. I'm not okay, to the GP, and then just that overwhelming sense of relief when they said, "Okay, come on in, have a chat." Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, I remember sort of sitting in my GP's office. And I'm, you know, when you sit in the waiting room, you know, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to say this and I'm going to be all right. It's all going to be okay. And as soon as I sat down and it was a friendly face, I howled. I absolutely sobbed. You know, I did have a list of things to talk to them about because I knew that my brain wouldn't hold, you know, everything that I needed to say. And I find it very difficult to cry at all. So particularly in front of someone else, you know, and all the time I'm thinking, oh gosh, you know, you're just really crying. This is but all I got was compassion and empathy and someone who was listening. Like you say, you know, you're struggling to articulate what you want to say, but someone who was taking the time to listen, you know, and then said, look, here's a leaflet. I think perhaps referring yourself would be a good idea. And yeah, that first step, you know, yes, but for me, you know, it felt really difficult because of all of the crying and all of that. But actually, I came out of that office, like we've already said, with a sense of relief, with a sense of, okay, there's another step. I can take that because someone's listened and they've not discounted me. And actually, yeah, I can do that. So we asked the peer support workers within the team, you know, when did we start taking those first steps? And we're just going to sort of share some of the things that the guys said. So I'll start. So, you know, some people were saying it's when they realised that they couldn't continue the way that they were.
Okay, and we've also had I wasn't taking care of myself.
We've also had that when I realised my previous coping strategies weren't working, and that I wasn't coping.
So someone else said, when I realised that I needed help to get me through this.
Yeah, and we've also had when my GP suggested contacting the Wellbeing Service.
We also had when it started to impact on my family life.
Yeah, and you know, someone else has sort of shared when they realised that their thinking was different to other people. So actually, it wasn't a common experience. Perhaps, you know, what they were sort of thinking, and perhaps there was sort of something else sort of going on there. And you know, looking at, you know, what the guys have shared with us, I should imagine that, you know, these are common kind of experiences for a lot of people before they take that first step towards sort of managing their mental health. I mean, I know for me, you know, I denied it for ages. Oh, I'm all right. Oh, I just need a bit of sleep, or I just need a bit of food. Oh, okay. And sort of carried on like that. And yeah, when that realization hit that actually, no, it's going to take a little bit more than sleep and a little bit more than some food to kind of work out what's going on here. Kind of, yeah, it was a big sort of light bulb moment for me. And so, Andrea, you know, how did it kind of work for you in terms of when you first took that step?
Okay, so I think it was, you know, spending time at work and taking longer to complete simple tasks like sending an email, worrying that the wording was perfect. For me, it's kind of always about perfection, you know. Also, as well, that it was starting to affect my relationships and my sparkle had gone. I was putting off going and doing things that we used to do, not contacting my friends as often. So just that general awareness that actually I'm not myself. And then I thought about how, when this had happened in the past, what it had meant. And it did mean that, you know, I was getting unwell. And so, you know, it was then that I decided to do something about it because I didn't want to get as poorly as I was previously.
And I think also, when our recovery journey has some sort of setbacks or some sort of turns in the path, it's, we can easily go, oh no, oh dear. But actually for me, it's learning from what I've done previously. What did I do previously? Like you say, Andrea, we kind of go, well, hang on, it's taking me longer to do this, take me longer to do that. Those kind of red flags. Yeah. Sometimes, which perhaps at the start of my recovery journey I wasn't aware of because, like I said, I was in denial. And what about you, Tim?
Yeah, I think that I kind of lived my life coping in one specific way, but there was a shelf life on that coping, and there was going to become a point where it wasn't going to work anymore. And there was the three things I can remember happening. One was that my manager pulled me up at work and said, "You smell. Like, people have said that you smell and you need to sort this out." And that was the first thing. I was like, it's never come up before. Like, I've always taken a lot of pride in like looking nice and smelling nice and being clean. But for some reason at that time, I just didn't care. Like, it wasn't important to me anymore. And I remember talking to a colleague like 8 p.m. I was talking to her about something I'd been fixated on that day. Could not stop thinking about it. And she just said to me, like, have you ever had therapy? And I was like, no. Why did you say that? What a weird thing to say, unprovoked. And then I went home that day, and I got home and I said to my mum, I think I'm depressed. And she was like, you definitely are. Like, it was. And so I called the GP the next day, and yeah, I think that the way I had been coping wasn't working. And yeah, I sort of set myself on a journey to learn how to manage those feelings, manage those thoughts.
And like you say, it can be those things that occur, like the conversation with your manager, the other conversation when you was, fixated on something, that can kind of jolt us and make us go, oh, okay, or sort of, like say, it can be like defensively going, well, what do you mean? Oh, it's all right, this is all kind of fine. And for me, it was a lot of physical problems came up. I suffer with eczema and psoriasis, and both are triggered by stress and anxiety for me. And I had this big patch of it across my face.
I distinctly remember when I was at that period of my life when I was unwell, my wrist just came out in this massive rash, and I got given this cream that was meant to be like a steroid cream. It didn't get rid of it. It was only after I worked with Wellbeing that it started to go away. It was the strangest thing. But yeah, it's fun. Like, I look out for that. It's one of the things in my wellness action plan.
Yeah, you and me both, Tim. I have a patch under my watch that is like a warning sign. So generally it's fine. If it starts to flare and become very, very red, it's like, oh, okay, something's occurring here. What's kind of going on? And I think, like I sort of previously said, when we've been on this recovery journey and, we take the dips and the turns that come along with it, we've actually learned from where we've been previously. So, like you say, for both of us, it's skin problems. Andrea said, she'd realised she lost her sparkle. It's then when we start then learning and going, oh, okay, this is telling me something. Or it might be that we need to, like you say, reassess those coping strategies again. Or it might be that actually we need to take those first steps towards getting another, round of support for us. And like Andrea said, it's, absolutely okay. So we also asked the guys, so you've made that decision to take those first steps. What did you do? How did that look for them? So someone was sort of saying, they were trying to do those things that brought them peace. So things that could distract or things that they could be immersed in. And for them, the more they did it, the more things started to gradually improve. And then had that knock-on effect in terms of, well, I'm doing this, well, I'm now able to do a little bit more of this. And then, like you said, sort of like those self-care things, sort of, Tim. So for this person, it then helped them to go, well, I'll start getting washed and dressed, because actually I haven't been doing that because I, don't want to go out and see people. So if I'm not washed and dressed, I'm not going to do it. And then start seeing those people and start doing those things that they'd actively been avoiding. And it's so interesting how doing something which again can seem very small, immersing yourself in something that involves you, can actually be a massive step and can have that, that knock-on effect on sort of different things as we go along. So, Andrea, was there anything else that the guys said?
Yep. So somebody said that they found some short-term coping mechanisms that helped.
One of the other peer support workers said that they referred themselves for support.
Yeah. So someone else was saying talking to someone.
Yep. And we've got the actual acceptance of being unwell.
I think the last thing we got was around seeing their GP and being prescribed medication.
Yeah, and again, it's interesting, isn't it, how experiences sort of can be different, can't it? So in terms of, finding those things that in the short term helped that person. And I think, Andrew, you've already mentioned, for me, it's the acceptance of something's not quite right, something's not fitting as it should. And for me, that can be quite difficult, but I'm getting better at it. When you're kind of seeing those red flags and you're thinking, okay, yeah, need to do something about it. And it might just be, I need to talk to someone at work about that. That'll help me get there. That's fine. Or like you say, it might be, doing something else, like sort of speaking to a GP. So, Andrea, is there anything in those things that kind of sort of fits with you and your experience?
Yeah, definitely that acceptance of being unwell. So actually needing to take some time to myself and just pull back on several things. So just recently I needed to take a month off of work, which I was really reluctant to do because I had that fear of letting people down. But also recognizing that if I don't get myself in a better place, then I'm not going to be any use at work, anyway. It was also about not going out and socializing as much as I would have done, taking the time just to do things at home and be peaceful, be kind to myself. And just really things are going to have to change. If you want to get better, you have got to make changes, Andrea, and you've got to stick to them.
Yeah, and those changes might just be the smallest of tweaks, mightn't they? They might be, like you say, I'm just going to make sure my boundaries are a bit firmer. I'm, going to say no to that social activity where I might have usually said yes. But like you say, there might be some bigger changes, like taking some time off work, seeing GP, medication might be, something that might be useful. And again, it's a very individual kind of thing, isn't it, in terms of what's going to work for you, and what works for me might not necessarily work for you or someone else, but it's finding our way through with it. And Tim, was there anything that kind of struck you there from
Andrea, I absolutely love that, because it was an expectation I had that recovery would be given to me, and it would be something that is given to me on a plate. Here you go, here's your recovery, see ya. But it's not that. It's something that I built for myself. Is something that I created and took ownership for. I always think of it a bit like waiting for a train that's never going to come. Like I'm at that recovery station, waiting for the recovery train to come, and I'm sort of looking at the clock. It's nowhere to be seen. And getting support for me was being shown that I could walk the tracks myself. I didn't have to wait for a train. And that, that resonates with me. I like that.
I love the visualness of it. Like say we're waiting. This is going to be something that's done to me. I don't need to be active. Someone's going to just do some stuff, and then afterwards, it'll be great, and I'll be skipping through the fields, and it's all going to be good. And you know what? Like you say, actually, we do have that ownership of it. Taking the ownership of, I'm going to try this. Oh, that didn't work as well as I thought. Can I make adaptations to it? Or, and definitely for me, my experience was I dealt with what was shouting out loud and in my face. But then once I dealt with that, I realised there was something else. So I then dealt with that. Then that gave me something else. And, there's an element where like, when is this going to finish? But actually, it's what I needed to do, because each time I went to a different workshop and, learned a different technique, it allowed me to deal with something else, which, then, like I say, gave me something else to then go, can we work on this? Which is what we did. And then, when I left the Wellbeing Service, I had this whole CBT toolbox of stuff to help, And it was just great because I could use that. It's my toolbox. I can open it up and use it how I want to. And actually, that's fantastic. It kind of gave me, like you say, the being in charge of my own recovery and taking those steps forward is incredibly empowering, isn't it, in terms of managing things overnight. So we were then kind of thinking, like you said, Tim, you wanted recovery to be handed to you on a plate. You wanted it to be like, ta-da, here you go. And actually, the reality of recovery is that there can be some challenges along the way. And, it's a bit tricky on a podcast to describe this, but if you can imagine a line that goes diagonally from one corner to another and it's a straight line, that's kind of what we want our recovery to be, that nice straight line, when in fact it's wibbly wobbly. It goes round a corner, it goes round, up and down, and you're still headed in the same direction, but there's lots of there can be lots of twists and turns in it. So we asked the guys, how did you deal with challenges when they come along, those things that might rock your recovery journey? What did you do? So again, I'll start off. So people were saying they reduced their expectations.
Okay, and they acknowledged any small achievement.
Someone's added being kind to ourselves.
So setting boundaries.
Taking time out if you need it.
Asking for practical help.
And someone else was saying establishing routines. And I think, like you said, Tim, the expectation that we can have with recovery can be quite disappointing when we realise that, it's not going to be handed to you on a plate. There's things that you need to be sort of putting in place. And I think, that reducing expectations, and Andrea, you sort of previously said about being perfectionist, didn't you?
Huh.
I've tried to reduce my inner perfectionist. She's still there, but in terms of that, it's been reducing the expectations, of myself. Do I need to? Does this have to be perfect? Do I need to send this off like this, or actually can I send it how it is? It's all right, Reducing those things. That doesn't mean that it's a failure, or I'm like, I'll hand out any old rubbish, it'll be fine. But it's being that kinder to ourselves, isn't it, in terms of not judging ourselves harshly due to the expectations that we have that are perhaps too high, or those standards that are too high. And Andrea, was there anything in there that kind of fitted with you and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, just firstly, Rachel, that reducing expectations, that's made me think. I mean, I'm quite a new driver, but like when I pull into a parking space, does it matter if my car isn't like absolutely straight? I'm in the space, little things like that for me.
Well, funny you've said that. I've had to embrace good enough where it comes to parking, because otherwise I'll still be in a car park going backwards and forwards. But yeah, like you say, simple things like that, just going, it's in the lines, it's legal. Off you go. Yeah, it's all good. Sorry, Andrea, interrupted.
That's all right, yeah. And then you walk around the car park and you look at everyone else's. Well, they're not perfect either. No. For me, it's very much about setting boundaries, and that's in lots of different areas of my life. When I came back to work after having that month off, it was being really boundaried around starting at 9, finishing at 5, not hanging on to just do that one extra email, making sure I took my lunch break and had some breaks away from the screen. In terms of my social life, not saying yes to people because I think that they'd like me to say yes because it's good for our friendship. Actually saying no if I really can't manage it, which people respect, I think, a lot more. And also as well, other people can help them out. You don't have to be super lady or superman, and you don't have to fix everything for everybody.
It's kind of letting go, isn't it, in terms of kind of going, well, yes, I could do that for you, but actually I'm managing this, and this, and if I take that on, that's just one more thing. And whilst that would sort out your problem, it would give me another problem. And it is hard to be boundaried, I think, particularly at work, where you're thinking, oh, that email's come in, and the temptation to send an immediate response when actually it can wait. And that takes time, doesn't it, to learn those different things.
Yeah. And just also as well in my self-care as well. So I know that being in bed by 10 o'clock is going to work for me. If I have a bath beforehand, even better. So, do I stay up and watch an extra episode of whatever I'm currently binging on Netflix, or do I stick to that routine, which I know is going to benefit my sleep, and ultimately tomorrow I'm going to feel better for it? It's hard, isn't it?
It is. Like you say, having that boundary with ourselves. I mean, yes, I could watch 7 Lucifers in a row, but be a bit sleepy and not quite with it the next day. And it's not as if it's going to disappear from my telly. I can watch it tomorrow. So setting it within ourselves is also great. And Tim, anything that kind of fitted with you?
Yeah, I could watch the difference between a long-term coping mechanism and a short-term coping mechanism fight in an arena for days, because they constantly do. Like the short-term coping mechanism of maybe demolishing a tin of Pringles, which is totally fine. But then later on, I probably won't feel so great about that. Whereas a longer-term coping mechanism for me would be sort of just, let's go for a walk, go find some ducks somewhere. They're a lot of fun. And that trying to be kind to myself around that, about what am I ready for today? Am I ready to kind of lean into those short-term coping mechanisms, or am I able to go for those longer-term coping mechanisms? It's called Tim's accessibility list. I've never written it down because it's always changing, but it's what do I feel ready for today? And I sort of make a list in my head, and usually nowadays most of the thing at the top I can go for, but there's nothing intrinsically wrong with having to go down to the bottom of the thing and saying that is today. That's what I feel ready for today.
And we can all have those days where actually we wake up and we're like, it's not happening. It's really not happening. And again, it's when that self-care comes in, doesn't it? In terms of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, like you mentioned, a whole tin of Pringles. Oh yeah, so with you there, Tim. For me, it's like family-sized chocolate bars. And like you said, in the short term, I know there's going to be that hit of sugar and wonderful chocolatiness that's going to make me go, oh, that was nice. But then later, there's going to be the guilt and shame that I've just eaten that all to myself. But again, I've had to learn, do you know what, in that present moment, that's what works. It's like I said, it's not long-term strategy, but in that present moment, that's what I did. That was all right. Tomorrow's another day. See how it goes then. So, yeah, definitely sort of self-care there. And like I kind of said, recovery is an ongoing process. So it isn't a straight line as much as we would like it to be. Andrew, is there sort of other things in terms of recovery as an ongoing process?
Yeah, so implementing those simple strategies when we're faced with a setback, so the small things.
And doing things which work for us was added onto there as well.
Yeah, so I've already kind of actually mentioned, being kind and gentle to ourselves.
Yeah, and if we've got wellness action plans, reevaluating those, so keeping them up to date with how we're feeling. If people aren't aware of what wellness action plans are, if you scroll back on the podcast list, Rachel and I did one about wellness action plans right near the beginning.
And the last one that was added was needing further support from services after maybe your first interaction, and that's totally okay.
Yeah, like we say, I can't get over the visual of Tim having his recovery on like a silver platter, handed to him by a butler. I've got this mad vision in my head. But like you say, that's what we're wanting. We're wanting it to be quick, and we're wanting it to be simple, and it's not that straight line as much as we would like it to be. But as we've discussed, we can have strategies, tools, and techniques that help us to work through those sort of difficulties. And Andrea, was there anything in that list that you kind of used for your own ongoing recovery?
There was something else I thought of actually, Rachel, and it's that it's okay to have bad days. Okay, so like one day I can be getting up and really excited about the day ahead and stick on some dance music and just be buzzing. But there's other days I wake up and I really don't want to face the day. And do you know what? It's about saying to myself, that's okay. Today's not a great day. It might get better, but you'll have a buzzy day tomorrow maybe, and that's fine. Rather than beating myself up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I think there's a phrase, isn't there? And I know I'm going to get it all wrong, but it's something like it's riding the recovery wave, isn't it? And some days you'll be surfing along the top of it and it's like, woohoo, look at me go, and other days you're gonna be underneath that wave and it's all just a bit hard and a bit difficult. But again, it's that kind of feeling of actually, okay, today's not okay, that's all right, tomorrow's another day, you know, and well, actually the afternoon might be different to the morning, and just, you know, kind of sitting with that and going to, look, this is all right, this is how this is going today. And Tim, anything there that, you know, you've experienced?
I got really excited a moment ago because when you said that recovery isn't a straight line, it reminded me of a quote. I don't know where I read it now, but it was probably a while ago since I don't remember. But it was that recovery isn't a linear process. It's more like a spiral where sometimes you repeat the same patterns. And I think that's something really beautiful, and something that's stuck with me for a long time. I'm gonna have to Google it because I really don't remember where it's from, and I think I'll be surprised when I find out.
Yeah, well, now you've said that, that sounds quite sort of familiar to me. And you know, I kind of think of recovery is, you know, like a bit of wool or string that you kind of throw on the floor, and then you get those interesting sort of shapes and how it kind of moves, and actually, you know, learning from those twists and turns is actually good, because, you know, it kind of, I don't know, for me it helps me, you know, those setbacks actually tell me different things and help me kind of learn how this goes and how to be with this ongoing process. And, you know, yeah, like we've said, you know, it's everyone's experience is different, and that is absolutely okay as well. So coming to the end of today's podcast, and we've just been talking about taking the first steps towards managing our mental health. On our next podcast, we'll be looking at well-being in winter.
Yep. So if you'd like to, you can find links for today's podcast in the podcast notes that accompany this recording.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you would like to refer yourself to the Wellbeing Service, it's very simple. So you can self-refer to the service, and you can do so either via our website or over the telephone. If you're currently having treatment within the Wellbeing Service and would like to have peer support, then please do speak to your therapist who can make the referral for you. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining us for this podcast, and hope that you'll be able to join us again for our next podcast, which, like I say, will be focusing on well-being in winter. And I'd like to thank Andrea and Tim for joining me and for their contributions, much appreciated. So say goodbye from me. Goodbye.
Okay, bye from me also, and thank you very much for listening to us today.
And that's goodbye from me. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.